Hey, I thought it was all over.
Hey, everybody, what's up? This your boy Shakaboona here again. We here with the Hydra podcast. We got another episode coming up, and we're right here, just doing our Hydra podcast thing, We want to tell people what the Hydra podcast is all about, and what it's all about is, we have our political prisoner, Russell Maroon Schultz. He wrote a book called The Hydra and the Dragon. And it's talking about different movements around the world, different struggles, and that's what we talk about right here. That's part of the things we talk about is different movements, different struggles. We have a lot of different political issues and revolutionary issues that we like to deal with. And so right here we have my good friend Nora. Nora is of the Philly Palestine Coalition. She's a community organizer working in energy democracy. She fights for the Palestinian liberation and social justice at large through art and storytelling. And I must say this, Nora is I know of Nora, I know Nora within the streets of Philly. She puts it down. She's right here, representing, so I'm really excited to have you on here, Nora. How you doing?
Thanks, Shakaboona. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's great. Man, so today is a really big day. And today is Nakba Day. And it has a lot of significance for the Palestinian people, for Palestinians around the world, and for other people who struggle on behalf of the Palestinian people, because we see that our struggles are one. So could you tell us a little bit about Nakba Day and what it means to you, and how you've been moving on, not just that day, of course, but all throughout the year with that in mind?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Nakba, first of all, means catastrophe. And this began before 1948, but it is commemorated on May 15th because it is the day after what Israel claims to be their Independence Day. And starting in 1946, you have the mass displacement of Palestinians. And just to read a little bit on the facts about what happened during the Nakba, according to the IMEU, is in 1948, armed militias invaded towns and neighborhoods across Palestine, massacring families and forcing the majority of Palestinians to flee their home. Palestinians call this Nakba in Arabic for catastrophe. During the Nakba, Israel committed dozens of massacres and violently forced between 750,000 and 1 million Palestinians to flee their homes. Israeli militias destroyed more than 400 Palestinian cities and towns and stole approximately 4,244,776 acres of Palestinian land. Israeli leaders are now openly calling for another Nakba. As Israelis kill thousands of civilians and destroy entire cities in Gaza, it's committing one right now. The Nakba never ended, really, but we're seeing it on in a heightened way, where there is 2 million people displaced today. Over 35,000 people who've been killed in the past since October 7th. And these killings and this genocide didn't just begin from October 7th. This has been happening since even before 1948. You can find documentation on Zionist organizations talking about taking on Palestine from the early 1900s. Let's talk about 1917 and the Balfour Declaration, right? The promising of Palestine. And so you can make many correlations between 1948 and 2024. And so for that, I also just want to read some quotes that really demonstrate this correlation and continuation of the ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestinians.
Yeah, let's hear that, because that you're right. It's been going on for a long time. They started this displacement long before 1948, as you say, and it's just got bigger and bigger every time. So once
Yes.
they declared Israel their state, they it's just been going on at a much faster pace, and now here we are today. We're in a situation where with the current conflict, it's like it moved them all the way to the bottom of Palestine. It's like, where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Where are you going to go? You can't go anywhere after that. So what you trying to do? Wipe all the remaining Palestinians out? So yeah.
This is, I can't find the quotes that I'm looking for right now, but this displacement is both a displacement of people, but it is the destruction of not only infrastructure that is human history, but it is the Earth's infrastructure, the burning of farmlands, the forced infertilization of farmlands, the inequitable access to unclean water, the energy sources being controlled, all of these ways of basic living being completely destroyed, but really thinking about the environmental aspect as well. This human element that goes beyond the immediate what's happening in Palestine. And this war currently, it's not even the war. I can't even say that this is from October 7th. This has been going on. I mean, the settlers build upon mountains, right? We're talking about the West Bank, and they pour their sewage down into the valleys onto Palestinian villages. They throw their trash. You can see images where they have to put up wire, right, to block the trash that is thrown down from the settlers who literally build on top of these villages, right? And we see these tactics here in Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, yes, we do.
With the ways in which real estate, right, starts to pick up properties in different neighborhoods to raise up property taxes values, that raise up property taxes, not investing in actual community, right? Allowing for the lack of public services for trash to pile up in the streets. So, it happens in all of these different ways, whether it is Israel and Palestine or we're talking about real estate agents in Black and brown communities, right? And it happens in different levels.
Yeah, and I think one of the levels that I see all the time, we know, like looking at Philadelphia is like it's trash strewn everywhere, right? Until you go into the more affluent areas of Philadelphia. But they leave a lot of these other areas ridden with trash, or the buildings very dilapidated, falling apart. This is to make people want to leave,
Exactly.
because they don't want the people here. They don't want Black and brown people here in the city right now. So they want to let it deteriorate, right? And they want to cause the destruction of it, right? So people can be displaced. So people can leave up out of the cities and go out to the suburbs or whatever. And in return, they start buying up all this property. And at the same time, they start policing heavily these communities, right? To keep them locked in and not go outside of those communities, not go into the more affluent neighborhoods in Philadelphia.
And might I add, this land is stolen.
Yes.
On multiple levels, right? Stolen from indigenous folks, and then we have stolen from Black folks in neighborhoods. It just keeps being taken in Palestine as well. The police and the military ensure the forced taking of this land. And they use their bulldozers like Caterpillar, for instance, to allow us to watch them bulldoze homes.
Right. And thinking about this, you just struck something within me, and it just made me think, right? When we look at this, this is something that has been done on every continent by America or the European powers, Britain, France, the Dutch, Germany, we can go on. And everywhere they went, that's what they did. They went and conquered. They displaced those people. They destroyed the natural environments. And they developed the land to fit themselves and then have everyone, basically servants to them. And we find this all the way around. It happened in South Africa. It happened over here in the Americas. It happened in the Caribbean. It happened in China. It happened in Asia, parts of what is known as the Middle East, everywhere, India. But we still find it going on. But one thing about it is the common denominator is that it's a criminal act that they have done on all black and brown peoples around the world. But the one that is continuing, one of the most well known that is continuing is right here with Palestine. And at one time it used to be South Africa too, right? But with that, people need to be able to see that, because a lot of times we got the people be trying to I had a conversation with an activist, well-known activist in the city by the name of Sam or Samantha, and me and her was talking, and we was talking about how we have to try to, make people understand the connection between, let's say, Philadelphia and Palestine, or the reservations that they have native peoples on in Palestine, how to make those connections and how to show people that, we need to have solidarity in it. And here's why: because it's the same capitalist system, it's the same group of people, right, rich and everything, powerful people that's doing this around the world, and they just doing it right here. And so people just need to see that, and they need to have a lot of times you got to give people a visual picture of it so they can really understand, because they be like, man, that ain't happening over here, it ain't happening to us. No, it is happening over here. It is happening to you. It's just happening in a different way, so but that's what I like to talk about. And then when you talk about the destruction of land, it reminds me, I was reading some stuff on the Palestinian life over there, and how it used to be an abundance of olive trees, right? And olives sold all around the world, but they will go on some of these Palestinian lands and destroy all the olive trees, so they wouldn't be able to have some form of economy.
In fact, actually, just the other day in the West Bank, settlers set fire to tens of thousands of, I think, acres of olive trees. Mm. And the quote in the Instagram post that I saw was something of the nature of, do indigenous people burn their own land? Mm.
Yeah, that's deep.
Do you do scorched earth on your own homeland?
That's right, that's deep.
And that's all they've been doing,
yeah,
in Palestine.
Yeah.
So that hasn't ended.
Yeah.
And that's not Gaza.
Right.
People forget about what's happening in the West Bank, the hundreds of kids and men and women and children who've been imprisoned,
yeah,
who've been killed,
right,
whose homes have been destroyed, both in 48 and in the West Bank.
Yeah.
We have to look at Gaza, but we can't forget about the West Bank.
Yeah, definitely.
So I want to come back to what you were saying earlier about making some connections between Philly and Palestine.
Right.
And I also want to say we cannot forget about what's happening in Sudan and Congo. When we're talking about, all of the imperialism of the world, we're seeing all of those who've been impacted by imperialism standing up and speaking out on Palestine. This is what's bringing the world and the oppressed together.
Right.
But we're not going to forget about Sudan. We're not going to forget about the Congo. We're not going to forget about Haiti, because it's all interconnected, and it's connected to Philadelphia. We live in this capital system that's propped up by the weapons industry as well as the gas and oil industry. They're really the root of this all, if we're visualizing the monster that we are all impacted by. The legs are the gas and oil industry and the weapons industry.
Yes.
And we know very well the role of the weapons industry here on the streets of Philadelphia, right? These weapons are going to kill children. These weapons are going to bomb children, right? These weapons are being bought up by the government, by the police. They're being built in places like University of Pennsylvania. They're ghost robots. How many defense contracts have these universities gotten to build and research these different weapons technology? They have technology that is causing, they use at protests to cause headaches and things like that, right? This stuff's being used on us. What's happening in Gaza is actually just a testing ground.
Yes.
The weapons that they find being used in Sudan will say tested in Palestine. Right? The doctors are saying they've never seen anything like what they've seen before in all of these years. Every time Israel attacks, there's new things that they're like, where did this come from? So on the very basic level, you have the weapons industry and the weapons manufacturers and the gas industry that controls the legislature, that all of these corporations are funding, right? We have our tax dollars being used to fund this.
Yeah.
Fund the police here, fund the military here, fund the Israeli IOF. And when I say IOF, a lot of people say IDF. Let's call it what it is, the Israeli Occupying Forces, not the Israeli Defense Forces. It's part of narrative, right?
Yeah, that's right. All about
It's
narrative.
part of narrative.
Oh, and we're going to discuss that.
Oh,
we definitely going to get
You
in
know
that
I've got
narrative.
lots to say.
Yeah.
So we've got, our tax dollars going to weapons on all levels to be used against civilians.
And let me say that. Let me jump in
Yeah.
there, because that's real deep, and I think, right now we're dealing with an election year, a presidential election year in America, right? And so is our current president Biden and Kamala Harris versus Trump and whoever else he's going to put up there, right? And so, but the thing is, right, we dealing with Biden. Biden is catching a lot of flack. I actually had a conversation with the lieutenant governor of this state, Austin Davis, and we was having a conversation. They promoting Biden and everything, and I told him, quite frankly, I said, listen, I don't know about everybody, being enthused to go and vote for Biden because of two things, mostly. Our tax dollars, American tax dollars, being used to fund the Ukrainian war over there with Russia, right? I said people in America don't like that. I said every day we go to the gas station, it reminds us of it, right? And I said, and the second thing is the Palestinian and Israeli conflict that's going on with the taking of the land and the genocide that is occurring of that people. And I said, until he do something with both of those issues, he's going to have a hard time being elected. Now, Pennsylvania is a battleground state. He may need this. I mean, he definitely need this state. And so, but in order for him to really get this state and get a huge part of this country, he has to deal with that issue, and he cannot deal with the issue the way he's been dealing with it so far, which is, giving food, delivering food to Palestinians and delivering bombs to Israel to use on the Palestinians. That's not a good diplomatic strategy right there, and people see right through that. And so I just wanted to throw that in there because the struggle is also it's mostly a political struggle. It's a struggle for the hearts and minds of the people, not just around the world, but in America, to force the government to change its foreign policy as it relates to Israel and other countries, right? But as it relates to Israel and how they deal with Palestine. And for us to be able to put that pressure, we got to be able to put that pressure on the government, and that falls in line with the divestment of the divestment campaign that's going on, which is why they're trying to stop it, because they know it works. And so it deals with that. It deals with the occupations on campuses It deals with rallies in the streets. It deals with a lot of things. You know what I'm saying? The social media aspect, activism on social media, art as a resistance, and so those are all the things that it's dealing with. But I just needed to throw that in there. But I want to bring it back. I want to bring it back to the police, right? Because I'm looking at something. I'm looking at how during Black Lives Matter movement, when that went on, and how everybody from around the world stood up, and on all different continents stood up for that cause. And America, what they did was they used a lot of police. They used the police forces all across America to come and squash that movement, right? And a lot of people understood. They seen that the what you call them, the Israeli occupying forces, right? The IOF,
Yeah.
right? How they was coming over. They was training American police officers.
Yes, we cannot
So
forget
they
that.
using tactics that they developed and honed in against the Palestinian people. They using those and they transporting it over here, teaching American police how to do it and to better off, as well as the technology. Like, a lot of people didn't know that the drone, right, was actually started in Israel. They would used to fly it over top of Lebanon when they was still at war with Lebanon, and had that zone there that you couldn't cross. I forget the name of it, but they used to fly it. And once they got successful at it, America took the technology and took it to a whole nother level. So it was used as a testing ground. The drones that you're talking about, I'm in Philly, right? I'm in West Philly. I go to, I believe it's Lowe's on 52nd and Parkside, right? Guess what I see there? R2-D2 drone. Look just like R2-D2 from off of Star Wars, right? And everybody is like, yo, what the hell is that? Right? And I'm telling people, yo, that's the future. You know what I'm saying? This drone is doing all types of surveillance on everything within probably several hundred yards. Catching license plates, facial recognitions, audio, everything, right? Everything is going on is eavesdropping, is surveilling the neighborhood. And they doing it real innocently, like. They doing it real innocent, like. But guess what? And people, they trying to get the American people to accept the drones, right? But they giving them a soft drone. They not giving them the weaponized drone. See, R2-D2 right here can be weaponized. Like, you can put some submachine guns on it. You can put the sonic booms on it to blow your eardrums out, like you was speaking about. You can put a bunch of different weapons on it, gas canisters, whatever your mind can think of, that, like, they going to put it on there. In fact, they already got it on there. They just giving you the non-lethal one, right? Or giving us the non-lethal one. And so people need to be aware of that, because it's being used against Palestinian people, and it's over here being used against us too. And they only going to heighten it up. They you know what I'm saying? They only going to heighten it, especially with the Stop Cop City.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about that? Tell us about, that relationship, that aspect of Stop Cop City, how it relates to what's going on right now, that connection. Because they supposed to be having the IOF training people in cop cities.
Yeah. So, we have, once again, theft of land. The Atlanta Police Foundation is funded by Chevron, an oil company, gas and oil company, supporting this. And so many other corporations are literally putting their funding into this. And that's how we're choosing to spend our tax dollars, is to invest in building this space that police can train in how to attack people they're supposedly trying to protect. What is the purpose of that? That is exactly the same thing as Sherelle Parker sending police into Kensington instead of social workers who thought they would be there to support this effort. But no, we criminalize we criminalize Black and brown bodies in all of these different ways. And, you know, the other element of Cop City is taking away, I think it's protected land. It's heritage land. So once again, not just destroying human civic infrastructure, infrastructure, because we're creating these systems that instead of building health and wellness of our communities are in fact doing quite the opposite. Attacking olive farms, attacking community gardens. I heard a developer once said in an evaluation of a creative placemaking project, he said, when a community garden starts to be built, it means that, you know, the value's gone up. So we want it. What? So Cop City is taking away tax dollars that should be invested in communities for their health and wellness, to invest in a system and structure that has it grounded in its history and roots in imprisoning Black and brown bodies and ensuring through law that Black and brown bodies are put into these carceral systems. So they're using all of the pillars of power, and then narrative, which we'll talk about, right, to ensure that humans are disposable.
I do want to say this.
Jump in.
That land that they built in the Cop City on, like you said, it's environmental protected land. And so they just, I forget how many acres of land that they using, right? But they destroying acres. You know how many species they're destroying, how many of plant life, how many animal life they're displacing, you know, the natural environment that they're destroying, that we are dependent on, right? But they just don't care, you know? And so all this to do what? To beef up their repressive regime. And people don't really see it, but, you know, I know in the past we used to talk about this becoming a police state. Well, you're actually seeing it always been there, but now they're just like, they just bringing it even more, right? Because they see that they're losing control, and they are all about control. You know what I'm saying? So they can keep power. And all these different protests going on around the country and around the world, but especially here in America, they want to crush that. They don't believe in the Constitution. The Constitution, they never believed in that. You know?
Well, for some.
Yeah, for some. Not for the powers that be. Most of them. You know, we're going to leave it at for some, right? But they, you know, for them, it's just about this power and control. And so they're going to beef this up. You're seeing the police state being reinforced, because you already had it. They had every alphabet law enforcement you can think of. The ATF, the FBI, the CIA, the DEA, you go on and on and on, you know? And they got all these joint task forces. So, but they doing this, and what's going to happen is, I was speaking to another person, and I was talking about how the common denominator of all these different movements, I don't care if it's a teachers, education movement, environmental justice movement, climate, if it's any sort of people's movement, union, whatever, right? You have many different movements going on all at the same time in America. The common denominator is this. When you become effective, they unleash the police state on you, as they did with Stop Cop City and giving them indictments on the bail fund organizations that was paying the bails of people and said they was doing a bunch of RICO activity when they weren't. But they going to unleash that, and all of them, no matter what movement you from, guess where you're going to be at? You're going to be in prison. And so now you're a political prisoner. This is why I was in prison. And I was a political prisoner. And I told people, and my mentor, Russell Maroon Schultz, who was a political prisoner from the Black Panther Party for self-defense. And we used to tell people, like, on the outside, like, y'all need to help people in prison, because this is where they put movement people at. You know, and if they don't put you here, they're going to try to put you on the ground. And so we need to be able to support that. And so you have political prisoners over here right now. We got my friend Ant that's a political prisoner right now because of the activities that was going on, I believe, with Black Lives Matter. He's a teacher. He's right now in Fort Dix serving like a year sentence or whatever. You know, and they barred him from being a teacher. You know? And so, but we got political prisoners right here in America. And we have political prisoners right here in Palestine. And they're there for the same reason, because they standing up for, you know, their freedoms, their land, and their generations to come. And so I think that's something that, like, we all need to pay attention to. Because right now, I think it's around about 9,300 political prisoners being held in Israel right now. 9,300. You got a bunch of them that's children. They got elderly people up in there. And I think it's going to continue to grow.
And don't forget that just recently, CNN of all news outlets, right, received Israeli whistleblower information about the concentration camps.
Yeah.
You know, that are happening. And, you know, one thing I want to talk about, there's the element of political prisoners and the ways in which the legal system and the carceral system work to fight against communities' well-being. You have here locally you have the state violence on one level, which is, for instance, the bombing of communities, which we know this is also the anniversary of the MOVE bombings.
MOVE bombing, that's right.
Is this month, and you have Black Wall Street. Right? These are always state violence is used to destroy communities' well-being in the United States, as we see bombs being used on communities in Palestine. But the other element is the ways that state violence is enacted through citizenry. Right? And through how organizations are empowered to use violence, who are not part of the military and police system, to enact their goals of violence on each other. So what do I mean by that? In the United States, we have these white supremacist groups who are emboldened by many of these politicians, by these power structures that exist. Who are, you know, I hate to bring up January 6th, was it?
Yes.
Where look at where were the police and everything like that then? You know, just the other night we had a protest. There were five cop cars deep.
Yeah.
40 police attacked a blonde young lady from Penn or Drexel or one of the students.
Yeah, I seen it on the news.
40 cops on one young girl. I mean, come on. But the citizenry is what I want to talk about. The ways in which, you know, in for instance, in these student encampments, the Zionists were able to violently attack people. Here in Penn, they were spraying chemicals. An older man was going through the crowd of children and families with a knife, and the police did nothing. They're allowing these Zionists to attack. In Palestine, it's the settlers.
Right.
They're literally being armed from the United States.
Right.
They're literally being armed from the United States. And they're on record attacks right now because all eyes are on Gaza. So, you know, the citizens also enact the state violence.
Right.
And so we're up against two levels as well.
It reminds me within American history, you know, Black people, Asian people, and Native people as well. They were up against state-sponsored terrorism through the Ku Klux Klan.
Exactly.
And other groups similar to it, you know. And so what they wasn't doing with the military, the U.S. military, or the police and stuff, they were using these terroristic groups to do a lot of their dirt. And so I see that's the same thing going on. Like, if you don't know history, you won't be able to really truly understand a lot of the stuff that you're seeing, because you can't even put it in its proper context, and know like what's truly going on. You know what I'm saying? So, that's very deep.
Which is why funding to education is so bad, keeps getting cut.
Yeah.
It's why there's all these groups funded by interest groups who are banning books, trying to change history. Look at Florida. Don't scare the white people. Don't make them feel scared. Don't make them feel uncomfortable.
In fact, there's something on the news right now as we speak. I think it was in Virginia. So the Virginia, one of the political legislatures in Virginia, they just reinstituted all the Confederate general names on school buildings and stuff like that. And so people are like, hey, pay attention to what's going on. And I think this is them trying to, dominate the narrative.
Yes.
Right? They try to dominate the narrative of American history, in particular slavery and post-slavery. People think, after the Civil War, everything was, peaches and cream, chattel slavery has ended. No, you had a whole bunch of stuff happen after that. You had sharecropping slavery, penal slavery. You had American apartheid, right? What they call Jim Crow. You had terrorism. We have books written of about 100 years of lynchings and stuff like that. So, all going all the way up into the 1970s and early 80s. So we had these things, but they want to try to change the narrative. How do you see them, trying to change the narrative with, Palestine, the Palestinian issue?
Yeah. One of the major parts of the battle we have right now is on narrative. It's on taking control of the narrative. They use all of the psychological tactics to control what people are thinking. Language and visuals. Language is the way we communicate with each other, right? And Sara Ahmed talks about affective language. And the ways in which people in power associate, will say, the refugees are flooding in.
Yeah.
Literally, these politicians are saying Palestinians are not human. They're literally calling them animals. And this has been a project over decades. You see it in movies. You see it, one thing I've noticed about myself is I watch some really bad TV on Netflix. But one thing you notice is all the Zionist propaganda. Yeah. Y'all, RuPaul celebrated Golda Meir as a superwoman. On their show AJ and whatever on Netflix. What? That's narrative.
Right.
So it's the aspect of language that is dehumanizing, making sure people only see you as disposable. Again, that's the environment and people.
Right.
And it right now, people are talking about Hamas. This is an Israel-Hamas war when civilians are being killed left and right. The Israelis are using children as human shields, but yet everything they do, they say Hamas does. Everything they do, they say Palestinians do. They ensure that they spread misinformation without evidence, and the U.S. government just parrots it, right? So there's the ways in which the language is used in that way. There's the language in which, then there's the ways in which they don't show things. How are we not talking about the ways in which Al Jazeera was kicked out of Palestine? Why don't you want people to see what's happening?
Right.
I thought you were the most moral army that exists, not to say that any army is moral, right? So they've been doing these things through television, through advertisements, through all these different ways.
Especially social media.
And social media, exactly. I mean, they're scared of TikTok because people are saying the real thing. I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know, but they're targeting journalists, right? Here in the U.S., journalists are targeted in different ways.
Yes.
Being prevented from speaking on Palestine. We know some. So the narrative piece, again, it's built over decades. There's this book called Real Bad Arabs that was published a long time ago, and it was just analyzing films, and this was published decades ago,
Right.
actually, right? We see the way mugshots are used. Let's bring it back to Philadelphia.
Right.
We see even in history the way indigenous people are portrayed in images. So we see it in visuals, in art, in music. Look at how music is being used to create videos celebrating the violence against Palestinians, celebrating torture of Palestinians. Where's your humanity? The humanity is lost because you don't see the humanity in others.
Right.
Right? And so organizing is about taking back that narrative. The reason why the carceral system and the capital system is able to be propped up the way it is because of the narratives they've told. I mean, beyond the dehumanizing language, you have these false promises made to you about buying into the capitalist system. Buy this Jeep and you're a man. Spray this perfume and you will be the beauty of the world.
Right.
All of these ways to participate in the capital system to keep you away from thinking about the reality of your life.
Yeah.
Because you're promised all of these things. And so that's another element of it too, right?
I think one of the narratives that I see that they try to dominate is that they try to make the world believe that Zionism is what like all Jewish people are part of Zionism, and all Jewish people are not part of Zionism.
Yes.
And you have a lot of Jewish people that disagree, strongly with Zionism, because they can see that, the history shows itself from the very beginning of it, going into in the late 1800s and coming all the way to the day, that it was a white nationalist political movement and organization, and it still is.
Yes.
And and they was trying to do the same thing that they seen the British doing around the world, the same thing they seen France and America doing around the world. So they saying, okay, let's take some land for ourselves and colonize it. And at one time they thought of Uganda,
Argentina,
and America. They leave that part out. They was looking at America too, but they settled on Palestine. And so, but this is a narrative that they continue to shape today, but that image is being broken right now. It's really being broken when you look around the world and you see a lot of Jewish people standing up, coming out and protesting along with Palestinians, or just even if it ain't even with Palestinians, but having protesters of their own, right, against Zionism. And so that's very big when we talking about that narrative. You destroying that narrative, and I think you got to destroy that image. And let me throw this last thing out there, and I'm gonna let you say what you say. When I was younger, I was, and I still am, a Bruce Lee fan, right? Love Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee had a scene, I believe is, I think it was Enter the Dragon or whatever, but he's fighting this guy on an island, and the guy, he's like this billionaire guy, but he's an international drug dealer. So, but in the scene, he's fighting him in all these mirrors. The guy got all these damn mirrors, right? And he's faking Bruce Lee out with these mirrors, because Bruce Lee is attacking his image, but never is getting to attack him. Meanwhile, he's jumping out, slashing the hell out of Bruce Lee, right? And then Bruce Lee he fell back on his teachings, and he's like, look, hell with the fake out, the false representations. Focus on the true person, right? and of course, in the movie, he caught the guy, tore him up, boom, 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 killed the guy, right? And he gives some little philosophy, excuse me, about it, right? And it's really deep. But I think about Israel. I think about America. I think about the false narratives that they put out, and they got people, chasing these false images, right? But not truly being able to get to the heart
Yeah.
of the situation and being able to just destroy it. So what Bruce Lee did, he destroyed all the mirrors. Then he was able to see his target. And I think that's kind of like what we have to do in the struggle, in global struggle, right, against the same common oppressor. We have to destroy the images, the false images, right, to get to the target.
Yeah. And that's happening in so many ways that I want to speak to, but I want to speak to this point on anti-Semitism.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is so important to the narrative that anti-Semitism is ignoring the fact that Arabs are Semites.
True indeed.
Number one.
True indeed.
So erasing Arabs as Semites and then associating it to this political ideology called Zionism. Right? Saying that if you speak out against Israel, you are anti-Semitic. And I have to say, who's the anti-Semitic one? Because like you said, Zionism is a political ideology and does not represent Judaism and Jewish people. And that's being used, it's in law. It's literally written into law. Pennsylvania is an anti-boycott, divestment, sanctions state.
Right.
In which if you boycott Israel, you are not legible for state funding, right? I think there's about 26 states who have this law.
Texas is one of them.
And so this is allowing folks to believe, they're literally taking language that is to make illegal speaking out against a foreign country. More so than they do about the United States. Yes. Why? What is that about?
Right.
Right? And so this conflation is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Is extremely dangerous in this way. And so I want to just emphasize that speaking out against Israel is being listed by organizations like the Anti-Defamation League as anti-Semitic acts, from things like using the slogan from the river to the sea, which, by the way, they use and is in the U.S., one of the U.S. songs, From Sea to Shining Sea or whatever. But the reality is the indigenous people are Palestinian and it is their land. That's and right. Palestinian people are Jewish, are Muslim, are Christian, yes. are atheist, are, of all genders, of all, backgrounds, of sexuality, of races.
Very diverse, that's right. That's
very
right.
diverse.
Yeah. I think one of the things that that helps change the narrative and that shows the diversity, right, in the humanness of everybody, but in particular Palestinian people, is done through art. And my personal belief, I believe art is resistance, yes. right? It can be used as resistance, and we have done it for a long time. In the Black Panther Party, they used to have a member by the name of Emory Douglas, if I'm correct, and he used to do all the art. I believe he drew the panther right here, right, the Black Panther. But he used to do all the art in the newspaper, the Black Panther newspapers, and everything. His art was crazy, and one of the art pieces is like a play on. One of the things I was with a group, and in a group in Philadelphia, right? My man Emerald and all them, right? They had produced a shirt, right? And the shirt it got a police, pardon me, it got a pig, right, with a police uniform and cap on, right, and it says pigs are haram. No,
Yes,
it
my
says
friend has that
it says
shirt.
police are haram. Pardon me, I think
Yeah.
it says police are haram.
I think it says pigs are
Well, it
haram.
may be
Yeah,
pigs. I
it
think
does.
it's pigs. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pig.
yeah.
It says pigs are haram, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy. But I was talking to Emerald, and I was like, yo, you know that picture of that pig with the cop uniform and stuff. I said that's Emory Douglas. Black Panther Party. He started smiling. He was like, "Yeah," but this is how to show that these cops is like they not good actors, right? The military is not good actors. Politicians, they're not good actors, right? They do a lot of wickedness around the world, and I think he used art to show it. And I remember you and we teamed up. What was it last year? I think it was last year, and we did this piece with La Elijah, right? Correct?
La
Elijah. Speak about that.
Yeah, narrative and art as resistance is so important. You're talking about your shirt. I've got my Free Palestine shirt,
Right,
English,
that's right.
Arabic. The kufaya is a symbol of resistance. But photography, documentation. You've got groups out there like Decolonize Philly, or and Hate 56. I think he calls himself on Instagram.
Yeah.
Documenting the movement, documenting all these spaces, making sure our stories and our histories, the people's history, is told. Lela Jidar, which means no to the wall. It's a chant that comes from Palestine against the apartheid wall. And Lela Jidar is grounded in the photography of Aisha Mershani, in which they documented 20 years of the development of the apartheid wall, of Israeli state violence, of Palestinian resistance, and the portraits and stories of Palestinians all across the West Bank. And demonstrating the state violence that occurs in all of these different ways. And so there's a variety of different series, but what's important is that this photography is showing the people, the humanity in the people, seeing the eyes, the faces, the families, the strength, the resilience, and the oppressive powers they face, dealing with this apartheid wall. These photographs document 20 years of this, and so within that photography, each photograph has a QR code, and that QR code takes you to a website where you can hear the audio. So you're not only placing an image, but you're hearing the sound that comes with the image to tell the story of real life in Palestine that is not told.
Right.
That website also shows you where that photo is on a map of Palestine, because we know that the map is erased and erased and erased. Look at what it was in 1946, 1948 to what it is today. You read about what's going on in the photo, but you're also linked to what are the issues happening in this photo and how is it connected to Philadelphia.
Right.
Because the idea is that we're not just talking about Palestinian solidarity, we're really pushing against the media narrative to show the humanity of Palestinians and show, there's a project to ensure people are ignorant. And so part of this project is also a public art piece in which 10 of the images were designed into Instagram cell phones to put in the streets of Philadelphia, and with the QR codes as well, to not only instigate in neighborhoods, but also putting in neighborhoods for people to see themselves in those stories.
Right. How can we? Do you have a website? Like, do you know the website offhand?
Yes.
What is the website so our listeners can go right to it?
Okay, it's the same on Instagram and on the website, which is LALAJIDAR.com or .org.
All right, so just look that up. Make sure everybody look that up so they can check it out and be able to go on that website. They can.
Yeah, we also host community events through connecting it to the photography.
Yeah, and that's great.
Which we did a couple events with y'all.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget to talk about the Philly Palestine
Well,
Coalition.
that's what we're about to talk about right
Great.
now. I'm glad you mentioned that. You know what I'm saying?
Wonderful.
I'm glad you mentioned that. So, the Philly Palestine Coalition. Let me say this. I remember the first rally we had. I think it was the first. And I believe it was downtown. I mean, we was deep out there. We took control of the whole city, but that's a whole nother thing. That was great. What do you got to say about the Philly Palestine Coalition?
Yeah. Philadelphia is a city of resistance and resilience throughout its history. And the Philly Palestine Coalition is built upon years of organizing around Palestine in different ways by different groups. So you had boycott, divestment, sanctions, you had the Black and Brown Workers Collective, there's been Students for Justice in Palestine at different universities, there's Jewish Voices for Peace. And, in over the years that I've been in Philadelphia, we would have these different protests, one commemorating Nakba Day, or against the demolition of Sheikh Jarrah, or the killing of Shireen Abu Akra, and there were these moments of also coming together, not just in protests, at places with Spiral Q, for instance, and the Peoplehood Parade. And so what we started to just talk about, through these spaces is building all of us together that are working on this. And so Philly Palestine Coalition is about 18 groups or so and lots of individuals, including many of the ones that I mentioned, Queers for Palestine, Black Alliance for Peace, Ahnabayan, I think they're called, and many other groups. And Philly Palestine Coalition's been, as a name of Philly Palestine Coalition's been organizing for a few years now.
How do we get people involved too? Because that's very important, because I know we have people who want to be involved, who want to get be in support, and like, what can they do? You know what I mean? Because I know there's some people, they be like, damn, what, I want to do something, but what can I do?
There's so many things happening right now. Philly Palestine's been organizing at least one protest a week. It's pretty incredible. Supported the student encampments at Penn, have really been doing art builds, doing political education, and it's really led by young people. Like the SJP students,
Right.
the JVP Philly students, really are leading the way. There's a group of young women who are just truly centering, Palestinian women who are leading this way. And so how do people get involved? Well, the first thing is to follow the Philly Palestine Coalition on Instagram, because there you will know about all the art builds, the political education, and you have to understand some things are rapid.
Right.
We're today, Wednesday, putting together a press conference on Friday for a hate crime. The police refused to acknowledge all of the hate crimes that have been happening at Lombard Cafe until just today or yesterday. They were broken into, their cameras were cut, their register was broken into, their windows were broken, and stickers of Israel were posted everywhere. And the police still don't want to call it a hate crime. And this isn't the first time she's been attacked, right? Talk about narrative. Right? It's never a hate crime when it comes to a Palestinian, to a Muslim, to an Arab. It never is.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell people, man, because I'm involved with all types of struggles myself, and I always tell people when they ask what they can do, I said, do what you can do.
Yes.
Whatever you're good at doing, contribute that to the cause.
Absolutely.
If you're an artist, do some art. If you're a writer and you like poetry, or you're a journalist, do some poems, or write some journalistic articles or whatever. If you're a photographer, take pictures.
Yeah.
Right? Whatever you're good at doing, go ahead and do, but do it for the cause. Everybody is not built to be, on a rally, occupying spaces, or whatever the case, right? So do what you're comfortable with doing, but do something.
Yes.
Right.
100%. I mean, I like to think of the movement like a flower, You know, we all fit together in some way, whether that's the petals or the whole plant, right? From the roots to the leaves to the stem, to the petals, and recognizing our lane, you know,
That's right.
what our talents are, what we care about, and making those connections to understand ourselves in relationship to the collective and the community, to move a new future forward, and one in which we can move freely by choice, all of us, wherever we want to be.
That's what I'm talking about. Free Palestine.
Free Palestine.
Yes, yes. We're here with Nora. She's from the Philly Palestine Coalition. As you heard, she's a hell of a activist, community organizer. She's a duelist. I know I'm saying it wrong. What's the proper title? Is what kind of doula?
It's dream doula.
Dream doula.
So if you
It's
got
a
an idea,
dream doula. So
yes,
I never heard of that. So she's the first. Don't try to take her style now. You know what I mean? But yeah, this is your boy Shakaboona. We're here with the Hydra podcast with Nora. Thank y'all for listening.
Thanks so much.
We out. Peace, y'all.
Peace.
Hey, I thought it was all over.